Okay, this is getting close, guys. It is 4-3 currently, in the favor of Evil Geniuses still. They have 2 games at this point to kill Liquid HerO and secure a victory in the Acer Team Story Cup. This went from being something that was a 4-0 in the favor of JYP that looked like another all-kill, but HerO has started to turn this around. Now, Suppy is... I wouldn't say a dangerous pull. Oh, yeah, well, let's do the introduction. We'll talk about this in a second. Spawning here in the top right corner of Yansu, it's going to be the blue Zerg player representing Evil Geniuses, Suppy. The intro for this map intro, by the way, is the intro to Gurren Lagann. I don't remember the name of the song off the top of my head. Awesome anime, by the way. Probably still one of my favorites of all time. His opponent in the lower left from Team Liquid on a huge comeback spree right now. It's going to be Liquid's HerO. So Suppy's an interesting choice. I say this kind of half jokingly but half serious at the same time. If you've ever watched Suppy stream, if you've seen him play competitively, you know he can play the macro game. And all jokes can be held on side for that. But that being said, every time we've cast Suppy, it's usually been cheese. And I'm talking like ZVZ 6 pool spine crawler stuff. He even posted a video not too long ago of him doing that as well. Like the 360 no scope with all the dubstep in the background. But it's worth noting, cheese aside, he's one of 2. Him and Puck are the only 2 actual North American players to have won a North American Zotac Cup within the realm of Heart of the Swarm. Now that the Zotac Cup North America has been discontinued, they will forever be the only 2 North American players, and Suppy being one of them. But it's worth noting, I will never forget that match, because he like, I think one was a 6 pull and the other was a 10 pull, but he spine crawled a rush solar 2 times back to back for quick, easy wins. Now, it's not exactly the same level of cheese you can pull off against someone like HerO. And let's not forget, I have no idea what server these guys are playing on, whether it was Korea, North America, because Eastern Team Story Cup has some weird home advantage rules for server selection. But one thing I'm worried about for Suppy is not even any of the things I've described about cheese or potential. It's the fact that he's coming up against HerO, who's just taken down Jaedong. I love Suppy, but I think Suppy himself still kind of goes like, wow, if you could beat Jaedong, you know, where am I left with this matchup? Now we do have a gateway coming down in base and a nexus out of HerO. So while the probe is kind of moving around the mineral line, making some funny moves, it's certainly not going to be for a cannon rush and not for some cannons behind the mineral lines. This map has been a little bit notoriously cheeky lately for that, especially, but checking for the third HerO. You know, this is the first time too. I'm not sure if he knows that Suppy is a really cheesy guy or not, but this is like the first time we've seen HerO scout, and he really is not a player who's an avid scouter, so really worried about what Suppy could potentially be doing versus him. Does see the earlier gas, but that alone is not that big of a tell. Metabolic boost is something you do want to have out fairly early, regardless of the matchup. So HerO's going to have to try and keep that probe alive a little bit longer and come back for a second scout if he wants to figure out just what Suppy's up to. I would almost love if he would just put down a pylon, like a fake out behind the mineral lines. But at this point too, Suppy's actually scouted the natural base, so it's too late to do it now, as we kind of mentioned earlier. Now, as far as what HerO can do versus Suppy, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw the same similar strategy. He may decide to go for a gateway all-in. A lot of this comes down to not necessarily disrespect, but thinking like, okay, Jaedong is Jaedong. Suppy is probably not the same tier of skillful in his head, or not skillful, let me take that back, I'm sorry, I should really rephrase that, because Suppy is a skillful player, but like, not the same level of a threat that Jaedong would be, right? But that being said, you still want to play it safe, you want to play it smart, because all HerO has to do is make one mistake and lose the game, and he loses the series. This is the road to a reverse all-kill, and I don't know if he can pull it off. But versus Suppy, looks like he is going to go for the Stargate. He puts it even on the front lines. Now this might mean... Oh wow, he hasn't actually scouted it. I was gonna say, if Suppy scouts this, a lot of the times you'll see Protoss players put the Stargate here as part of their wall, and you think like, well, why do that? That's such a big risk. It's such a critical building. If you lose it, it's a huge loss. But at the same time, you want your opponent to scout it. You want them to know that they cannot go Mutalisks, that they should not go for a Spire, because you've already got that Stargate down. And it is going to be Phoenixes again out of HerO. Now, Suppy, in the meantime, has taken a third while this has been going on, and that's perfectly fine. As far as massive Phoenix openers, I mean, I shouldn't even call them massive, but as far as like Phoenix openers from harass, they're not easy to deal with, and they're certainly not fun from the Zerg standpoint. That being said, though, it's completely within the realm of possibility for Suppy to hold off any sort of Phoenix aggression if he decides to take something like a fourth, if he decides to go for earlier Hydralisks, because the sort of MO of a lot of the Zerg players today has just been kind of sit around that slower tech path, don't get units out until it's already too late. And I'm not even just talking for for Jaedong, or not for Suppy. Like any Zerg play that we've seen in recent days tends to play that way versus Protoss. But HerO's the only one who's been consistently opening with Phoenixes, and I really like this because in the European scene, a lot of the time right now, we're seeing a lot of more cheesy play. We're seeing a lot of gateway all-ins. We're seeing players go for warp prisms and sentries, kind of mimicking that of Arthur. If you guys don't know who Arthur is, by the way, really cool guy. If you ever, by the way, okay, let's side note this for a second because he's not playing. He's not in the Eastern Team Cup at all. But if you ever want to see really cool PvZ all-ins, and I know it's like a disgusting thing to say, but Arthur is your man. He has got some of the cheesiest, most disgusting, yet amazing and fun to watch all-ins you'll see. But anyways, bringing it back for a second, HerO's going to try and go for a queen kill here. Waits for that extra Phoenix, so he's got the DPS for it. Should be able to kill it now. So a really nice pick off for him. As it will cut down injects more than anything else, but also no creep spread. Well, there's a little bit of creep spread, I guess. One tumor. One tumor. But a pylon being placed up here way to the north. I'm curious on his choice to do this. This could just be for a simple warp in. I don't think he's going to high tech with this, with the Twilight Council coming in home. So I was going to say, like, if he waits too much longer, that might be the case. But 4 Zealots warped in. Probably wait till he's got 7 if I had to guess. That's the magic number. Samsung Galaxy's Trend is the guy who kind of taught me just how many Zealots you need exactly to knock down a third base. Because that was what he would do every single time, without hesitation, without question. But a hallucinated Phoenix joining the fray here too. Kind of a neat thing to see, I guess. Not a big deal. Yeah, gonna go for 8 Zealots before he decides to go in for the fight. He does not have +1 completed yet, so he doesn't have the easy mode fight versus Zerglings you would normally want to have, but decides to send the Zealots in early to try and get behind that mineral line. The idea is to get into the mineral line so you limit surface area for the Zerglings to surround you, because that's the advantage of Zerg. You get a lot of units out to go for those surrounds. They can't really fight you in even numbers, but yep, surrounding these first 4 Zealots, the other ones on top of the Queens giving chase. There's just so many Zealots here, even without +1, it's going to be hard to deal with. But once +1 completes and finishes, it gets even worse for Suppy. Phoenixes are over here now too. Could Graviton beam up the Queen, looks like they'll do just that. Third base under a lot of trouble, but these Zealots do have full surrounds by each of these Zerglings, so spread out a little too much in that regard. But they're in such a good spot right now. Even with the Spine Car completing, it's going to be a little bit difficult for Suppy to deal with. +1 weapons is now done too, so these Zerglings will get 2-shot now instead of 3-shot. Pylon is going to get taken care of, but let's not forget it's not the only Pylon. Second one over here, and Jaedong, or sorry, not Jaedong, Suppy, so I got Zerg on the brain right now, has made a hell of a lot of Lings. Now he will clean up these Zealots, but he took quite a few losses in order to do so. 13 drones died. I think it was a total of 3 Queens have gone down as well. And he's got a lot of Lings to work with. Now coming across the map for a counterattack, unfortunately for him, HerO's already knocked down the rocks, so there's only one avenue of attack to worry about. And force fields should keep him covered in that regard. Yeah, I'm going to actually put a lot here. A lot of sentries to hold this. Suppy doesn't know about this base towards the north. If he did, I'm sure he'd go around to it. I'm a little shocked he didn't. He saw the rocks were knocked down, so he's got to have an idea, like, okay, why would you knock down the rocks unless you're going to try and build something there, but unfortunately for him, forced to just back off and duck away for the time being. HerO does have a really nice setup here too. With the cannon behind the pylons, he should be able to hold against small amounts of Lings, but whoa, back it up. Suppy is going to go for Locust. I've been paying so much attention to the action going around. Didn't look at the production tab. 5 Swarm Hosts, and during Locust being invested into right now. Okay, so let's talk about Swarm Hosts. Real talk about Swarm Hosts, because I feel like I'm one of the few people who actually appreciate and love watching Swarm Hosts. Every other caster I see is like, oh boy, here comes Swarm Hosts, incoming 20-minute boring game. But I love the way Swarm Hosts can be utilized, if done correctly. There are some players who, I think, just make them and hope to win. And if you do that, you're probably going to lose a lot of the time. Because that's not how you best utilize Swarm Hosts. Bros them immediately, by the way, to make sure the Phoenixes cannot Graviton beam them in the air. Really clutch move there out of Suppy. I like that a lot. But if you see that and identify that your opponent's gone for something like Phoenixes, like, yes, you can Graviton beam. You can actually rip a Swarm Host out of the ground with your Phoenixes and force them to take some damage. But beyond this, because the Robo Bay is going to be so late, I mean, there's the typical 1-step, 2-step that we talked about last time we saw this too, where you open with Phoenixes, they go Hydralisks, so you instead respond with Colossus. But Suppy's hoping to have these out at an early enough time before the Colossus are finished, so he can apply a little bit of pressure and do some damage in that regard. But because he's been forced to burrow them at home and leave them hiding from the Phoenixes, they're not going to get that result. They're not going to hit at that early timing. They're not going to be able to start applying pressure to the natural right now, or break through these rocks and take down the third. The longer he has to leave these at home, and he does have to leave these at home because of the Phoenix threat, the less effective these will be moving forward. Now, HerO saw this too, by the way, guys. So we got double Robo, we got the Robo Bay finishing up now, so 2 Colossus at a time will be no problem to produce. And while 4 Colossus can kind of deal with Locust while taking minimal losses, it's closer to 5 or 6 that you really want to have to completely shut down a Swarm Host wave. Now that being said, doesn't mean you can do this very easily. Huge warp in over here to the left. Archon's most likely over Storms. Yep, no Storms available. But yeah, the Locusts are starting to move a little bit. Yansu's a great map for this too. Fantastic for Swarm Host, but it's... I kind of feel for Suppy, he delayed this too long. And again, not by any choice of his own. It's just the fact that he chose to go for the faster Swarm Hosts without the cover for them. Like, if he had built, say, 7 different Spine Crawlers. Woo! Hold the phone! We actually got a big warp in. I was going to say Spore Crawlers instead of Spine Crawlers, mind you, but still warps in a ton of Zealots to the main. Zerglings are simply not going to cut it. Plus, 2 weapons are complete, and they're going to shred these Zerglings to bits. Trying to get up here towards the main, though, force-fielding this off. Liquid HerO has essentially locked himself in place here as far as securing the base of Suppy. Suppy, in the meantime, spending just sending Locust to the middle of nowhere. This is a lot of dead supply. He might have 83 supply guys, but about half of that is in absolutely useless Swarm Host at the moment. Yeah, the Hive falls to this many Zealots, or not the Hive, the Lair falls to this many Zealots, not at all surprising, but behind this, he's trying to get some Spine Crawlers down to protect his tech, but everything here is going to bleed out eventually. Pushing in here from the natural base too. Suppy didn't see this coming. Gets force fielded even further into his base, locked into an even worse situation. Locust now trying to come in from behind, but these should have been already here. These should have already been fighting. So his Swarm Host control a little bit lackluster in that regard, but pushing towards the main. Another force field to lock the entire army out. And is there a Mothership Core? Can he do a recall? Mothership Core actually just went down out here side, so was trying to look for it, but clicked on it a little bit too late. Spine Core is complete, but everything's starting to bleed off a creep, and this is all of Suppy's tech. This is so bad for Suppy right now. We do have Locust shooting uphill, which is kind of cool. You don't ever see that, but at this point, it's kind of, I don't know, irrelevant, I feel. Second Spire was made, but no money really for Mutalisks. He's got 1,000 minerals in the bank and about 700 gas, but he's got to use that on Roaches and other units, because if he invests in the Mutalisks, well, he's quite frankly probably going to die to the ground forces. Another force field goes off. Locust can get absolutely nothing done. Zealots warped in and heading towards the third base of Suppy, and this is the critical one. This is where his new layer's coming in. For Suppy, this is really bad, unfortunately. Roaches are trying to move across, but this is looking worse and worse for Suppy. Trying to get another new hatchery down, but what's the point of getting new hatcheries if you can't defend any of the ones you currently have? Spire being focused on by the Stalkers, blinking down to the low ground. And the Locusts, God, I don't think these Swarm Hosts have killed more than like 1 or 2 units. Suppy, why did you go for Swarm Hosts, man? You're better than this. You know better than this. Suppy's one of the smartest players I know in StarCraft 2 as well. But unfortunately, not going to be able to take out Liquid HerO by the looks of it. Down to barely 2.5 bases right now. Assault on the third about to begin. Stalkers in the main actually going to be picked off if not run away. A lot of Zealots still up here hiding. Suppy may have thought that HerO completely left. So these Zealots may just end up walking down towards the natural base. There's so many of them. Another big warp in over here could also lead towards a third base of attack, but Force Field is going to allow these Stalkers to retreat out for the time being. Unloading a couple Zealots over here. Has HerO just simply forgotten that he has this many? Okay, no, he's actually going to go for the third with these. If he draws the army towards the third, yeah, then the Zealots move to the natural. This makes a little more sense of what he's doing. Big warp in here as well. If he focuses down the layer, that's going to just absolutely neuter Suppy. Focusing this hive this hatchery as well. Suppy's about to lose every hatchery on the map right now. This one being focused by the Stalkers. Good transfuses out of Suppy, but the necessity is kind of irrelevant. He's just lost everything he owns. He's got a clump of Swarm Hosts, and that's all Suppy really has going for him at this point. Zealots continue to warp in, continue to take units down. 10 more Swarm Hosts being made out of desperation. But if the first 11 you made didn't work, what good are the additional 10, Suppy? Good game is called. HerO will continue dominating, now tying the series up 4-4 and putting Evil Geniuses on match point. So to discuss what this means real quick, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Acer Team Story Cup, now Evil Geniuses can resurrect any player they played today. So J-Dong, JYP, Helling Control if they want. They can bring anyone back to fight against HerO. If I had to blindly guess before I take a look at the maps and the replays, guys, it's probably going to be JYP, because he did beat HerO earlier today. But I don't know for sure. All I know is the last map, let's find this, Ultrazeme.